The waves here at the ocean are beautiful, entertaining, and sometimes destructive. And of course, they're consistent. They never stop. It's got me thinking about how we make marketing. Science tells us that all waves are just disturbances, a transfer of energy. Well, whatever a wave moves through is called the medium. And the medium, like the ocean here, will go back to its original position once the wave passes through. And the amplitude, or size, is what determines the impact the wave will have. So here at the beach, a large wave, well, it might thrill the surfers, but it's going to annoy those wonderful beach walkers looking for seashells. And that's the thing. A loud wave, a big sound wave might be wonderful at a concert, but if it's the chirping of a smoke alarm after it's lost its battery, it can be kind of annoying. See, that's the thing. We want to make big waves, big splashes, but we want to make the right kind of splash, the right kind of wave. And that's what we're here. Welcome to the California coast. And this is the first episode of Marketing Makers, the show that's built for those who make marketing. And I don't care whether you're a Fortune 500 CMO, a director of marketing at a mid-sized company, or even a lone practitioner, we can all use a bit of a primer on the modern marketing techniques and how they've evolved from some of the classic things that you might have missed in school or, quite frankly, didn't go to school for at all. Today's episode, we're going to be calling Reach and Frequency Up, as well as the 4 Ps and the integrated marketing mix. How all of those classic marketing approaches have now evolved into what we call content marketing. We'll also be talking to a practitioner of content marketing and how she's really taken the idea of reach and frequency to a new level and evolved a classic marketing approach into something that is truly modern and successful. Well, I guess it's time for us to get going and really explore this thing. And to do that, I have to leave this wonderful idyllic setting and get back to our Marketing Makers Lab. So I hope you'll join me there and get ready to really look at the whole idea of classic marketing. Let's get ready to go, and welcome to Marketing Makers. Everybody, how are you? Welcome to Marketing Makers. And this is the Marketing Makers Lab, where we explore in depth the meaning behind some of today's marketing's historical concepts and how they've evolved into some of today's most modern of approaches. And today, today you can see I'm mixing cocktails. And while that's a pretty common occurrence here in the Marketing Maker Lab, it's also got significance for our show today on how the classic marketing advertising concept, reach and frequency, has evolved into today's content marketing. So, where do we start? Well, we start with a term that you may have heard and perhaps even used today in your business, the marketing mix, sometimes also called the integrated marketing mix. And now the origins of the marketing mix go all the way back to 1948, when a university marketing professor, James Culleton, published an article describing marketers as mixers of ingredients. Basically a bartender of all the things that would go into a great tasting cocktail of marketing strategy. Now, the marketing mix as a word took off, and it was a huge buzzword throughout the 1950s. The problem, as you might expect, all marketers could agree that, yeah, we're mixers of ingredients, but nobody could agree on what the right ingredients were. Well, that changed. 1960, when Jerome McCarthy, another marketing professor, wrote a book called Basic Marketing, a Managerial Approach. And in it, he introduced another term that you might be familiar with, but don't use much any longer, the 4 Ps: product, place, price, and promotion. You see, product was the effort that you put into the offering itself. Now, this includes the features, the benefits, the packaging, the variety of colors, all the things that you might associate with the thing that's being sold. And then place was where you would offer this product or service. And that included distribution strategies, including wholesale, retail, e-commerce, regional, etc. Now, price, as the name might suggest, includes pricing strategies, where and how discounts might be included, or the different methods of pricing based on volume discounts, all that kind of stuff. And finally, promotion, and this is the one that many of us would recognize today as being the core of what we do as marketers and advertisers. The promotion ingredient itself included the strategy of the appropriate balance of advertising versus PR versus sales enablement, the message strategy, and the reach or content channel strategy. And finally, the frequency of messaging, or how often should we be communicating in order to reach and have the impact on our prospective customers. That's it. These were the standard ingredients that modern marketing in the 1960s, that's what they were looking for. Now, we'll talk more about product, place, and price another time, but let's talk promotion, the core of that ingredient. Now, it is where the concept of messaging and how many times we needed to say it would come from. Would become known as reach and frequency. Our reach was identifying and planning for which media channels we should use to promote the message, the story, the thing we wanted to say to both the largest audience and the one that had the most potential to be impacted by that message. And the frequency strategy, which was how often do we have to repeat that thing in order to create the impact we want? Our goal as marketers with these two ingredients became very simple. Balance, reach, and frequency to manage our cost versus the value we could make for the business. We try to reach as many of our target market as possible with our message as infrequently as we had to, because while reach was value to the brand, frequency represents cost. If I have to pay to run an ad multiple times, well, it costs more. If I have to pay more people to make cold calls, it costs more. If I have to buy more space on a network, it costs more. This is the whole concept and rationale of the Super Bowl commercial. As a marketer, you have the ability to reach one of the biggest collective audiences on the planet. And if you believe that you can create something truly memorable and special, well, then you can justify the enormous expense because you may not have to run it 100 times to create the impact you want to create. Thus, the cost-benefit ratio might be in your favor. The quintessential example of this is Apple's 1984 advertisement, the one that introduced the Macintosh personal computer to the world. Directed by famous movie director Ridley Scott, this ad ran only 2 times. Once on New Year's Eve in an obscure market so it could simply qualify for a Clio Award, which it subsequently won, by the way. But the second and really only other time this ad ran was in the third quarter of the 1984 Super Bowl. That's reach and frequency strategy perfected. Create a piece of content so wonderfully special that you only need to run it one time to impact an entire culture and introduce personal computing to the world. Now, the art and science of reach and frequency has become a key piece of how marketers strategize their campaigns across the whole of the promotion aspect of marketing. It became the foundation of the practice of media planning and the astronomical growth of advertising agencies throughout the 1950s, even into the 1990s. Their role became one of helping marketing makers handle the promotion part of optimizing spend by getting the most out of reach and frequency and creating business results. But then, a wave hit. Like we were just talking about, a big disruptive wave. In the mid-1990s, something happened that would change reach and frequency and the entire strategy of the P part of the 4 Ps forever. Now, you're probably thinking mid-90s, yeah, Robert, you must be talking about the internet and the World Wide Web. That's not it. Now, the internet and the World Wide Web certainly became the fastest growing new medium to access content and multimedia that the world has ever seen, but it was the introduction of one particular function on that medium that would really give birth to the meteoric rise of this medium and the fundamental change in the marketing mix. In a word, search. You see, up until this point, marketers were almost exclusively dependent on a one-way street for reaching audiences. Broadcast TV, radio, print, and even narrowcasters like niche cable networks or even websites were the only way to reach big audiences. And so the classic reach and frequency equation, it was still very much alive. As a marketer, you identified which ones had the highest percentage of your audience and you programmed your content to reach them based on aligning yourself with the highest chance to create the biggest impact. On TV and radio, that was the day part. What time did your ad run? In print, it was the alignment of your ad to feature content. On the web, it was taking over the homepage of the most trafficked website that you could find. But search, it changed all of that. This was really the birth of the on-demand media world that we live in today. Search made one-to-one reach and frequency not only possible, but more importantly, an optimal way of interacting with consumers. With search, marketing makers didn't have to guess which audiences were watching, what programs were consuming what content at what time of the broadcast media day. They didn't have to worry about how many times they needed to broadcast a message on a channel. They could simply optimize their content on their website to be easy to find when buyers were actually searching for it. Marketers, in theory, could really circumvent the frequency cost altogether. Now, of course, that's not really true, and it's not quite that simple. Making product and service content available to internet searchers, yeah, it's important, but it's only one part of the promotion P ingredient. Yes, it made a one-to-one relationship with buyers more possible, but also more efficient. But it only captures people when they've made a decision to search for something that they actually know they want or need. Going back to our Apple ad for a moment, search wouldn't disrupt this because there was no one, or certainly very few, searching for a personal computer in 1984. The impact of the Apple ad that it made was to make consumers and make them aware or convince them that they should be interested in the consumer computing revolution. Apple needed to inspire audiences to become customers, teach customers to become customers. And this is where content marketing enters the picture. Content marketing has, of course, been around for a long time. We often talk about examples such as John Deere's The Furrow magazine, or Jell-O's recipe booklets, or Michelin's travel guides back in the 1920s as prime examples of content that could inspire customers to become interested in a particular brand. And so it's always been a core piece of the marketing mix of reach and frequency. But what has happened over the last 20 years since the advent of search and as the technology of media production and distribution have become more democratized is that brands have discovered that they too could actually create the kind of content they would normally sponsor in order to achieve the reach they desired for other parts of the customer's journey. In other words, search didn't just disrupt the buyer's journey, it disrupted the content consumer's journey as well. Product and service marketers realized we can be just as effective at reaching bigger audiences and delivering the same kind of content, well, that we would normally sponsor. And so content marketing now becomes a core part of Jerome McCarthy's 4 Ps, squarely in the promotion ingredient of the marketing mix. As marketing makers, we can make a broader set of business decisions about our reach strategy. We can choose to build media properties that act as competitors to media properties that offer information, entertainment, inspiration. This evergreen content sits ready to deliver value to audiences that are searching for it. Or we can deliver promotional content that delivers the same value through the more traditional rented and frequency-laden broadcast platforms, TV, magazines, web, print, etc. Or, and this is the key, we can start to learn how to balance both of those. The fundamental change to reach and frequency is that marketing makers can now easily make and distribute the media that audiences want to consume. We have access to the same technology, creativity, and distribution as media companies do. And this changes the calculus of why we want to reach audiences and how we measure our promotional efforts. For example, let's say we want to reach an audience and make them aware of our brand or our unique point of view or on a change in our industry. Normally what we would do is we'd find a television show or a radio show or a magazine, and we'd buy some time on that publication to make sure our message was included to that audience. Now we can create our own show and have our own host and only talk about what we want to talk about. And that brings me to our next segment of our show. And it's time to actually get into the marketing makers field and see how actually this is starting to work. Let's learn from someone who's practicing this, a marketing maker who's practicing this in real life.